Welcome back to another explainer. Today we're unpacking an absolutely incredible excerpt from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's classic adventure, The Lost World. We're going to take these standard textbook pages and transform them into a high-stakes, edge-of-your-seat investigation. Honestly, if you love science fiction, exploration, and, a little bit of prehistoric danger, you are in the exact right place.
So let's dive right into this thrilling mystery. It's a story that really challenges both our basic survival instincts and our reading comprehension. We're following a group of brilliant, albeit incredibly stubborn, men who journey to a super remote plateau in South America, and they're about to find out exactly what happens when the greatest scientific discovery in human history turns into an absolute, literal nightmare.
We experience this whole journey through the eyes of our narrator, the journalist Edward Malone, and he captures that exact spine-tingling moment when the impossible suddenly seems wonderfully within reach. The group has just arrived at the foothills of this massive, mysterious plateau, and you can practically feel the electric anticipation in his words. The geological wonder is staring them right in the face, but the biological wonder, the dinosaurs, well, that remains the ultimate question hanging in the thick jungle air as they set up camp for the night. Picture the scene. Gathered around a crackling campfire, we've got Malone sitting alongside the rest of our key players. There's the fiercely determined Professor Challenger, who actually led them all out here, the big game hunter Lord John Roxton, the incredibly skeptical Professor Summerlee, and their trusty guide Zamba. They're sharing a well-earned meal of roasted animal that Roxton just shot, totally and blissfully unaware of what is currently lurking in the darkness right above their heads. Now, right off the bat, the text hits us with some intense survival vocabulary that perfectly primes us for the threats these explorers are expecting. We're talking about warnings of spears, blood, footprints, and just all-around deadly dangers. And remember, the entire reason they are braving these elements is to prove a wildly controversial theory and to hopefully find a bridge to a prehistoric world. Well, they don't have to wait long because those dangers materialize almost instantly. The peaceful tranquility of their fireside dinner shatters when they hear this terrible, deafening noise. Suddenly, winged creatures with long, thin necks swoop down out of the pitch-black sky. The text describes enormous beaks, ferocious red eyes, and dangerously sharp teeth. One of these monsters literally snatches their dinner right out of the blazing fire and flies off toward the plateau. And here's where everything changes. It's a massive turning point in our narrative. Professor Summerlee, who up until this very second doubted absolutely everything Challenger said, is forced to completely upend his worldview. Standing there in the dark, in a state of total shock, he looks right at Challenger and offers a profound, very humbling apology. It just brilliantly illustrates the shifting character dynamics of the group. On one side, we have Professor Challenger, the vindicated believer. His wild claims of surviving prehistoric life, finally proven true. And on the other side, we have Professor Summerlee, the shattered skeptic. In this fantastic moment of camaraderie, Summerlee offers his hand, and for the very first time, these two rival academics become actual friends. But we hit a snag. Knowing dinosaurs exist doesn't magically teleport them up the enormous, sheer cliffs of the plateau. The next day marks the start of a frustrating, totally exhausting search. They're hiking through broken rocks, batting away biting insects, and crossing wetlands filled with dangerous snakes. It seems entirely impossible, until Lord Roxton spots something highly unusual by a tree. It leads them to stumble upon the remains of a previous explorer, a man named Maple White. So, what exactly did they find? Let's treat this like a detective's evidence log. They uncover the remains of an old fire, an empty bottle, a rotting newspaper, and some seriously mysterious bones. But the most crucial piece of evidence is an arrow carved right into a tree pointing directly toward a cave. This specific clue is exactly why Challenger confidently deduces that Maple White had been here before them and, more importantly, had found a path forward. Eagerly, they follow that arrow straight into a dark tunnel. But suddenly, there's a loud rumble, and a massive rock crashes down from above in the pitch black. It's a terrifying, heart-stopping moment that prompts us to ask the exact same comprehension question the textbook poses. Was this just a random accident? The explorers instantly get that horrible, creeping feeling that someone is watching them, and maybe even actively trying to kill them to keep them off that plateau. And their fears are only compounded when the dark tunnel abruptly ends. It is completely obstructed by a massive pile of rocks. With the path blocked and the team feeling utterly exhausted, hungry, and miles away from their camp, their epic quest seems to have hit a literal dead end.
As Challenger sadly admits in a rare moment of defeat, Maple White's way to the lost world is closed to them. But here is the crucial point: Challenger's sheer, unbreakable determination. They head back to camp entirely defeated, and everyone crashes and goes to sleep immediately, except Challenger. His drive pushes him to pace around the camp all through the night, just muttering to himself that there absolutely must be a way to get up there. He flat out refuses to give up. And you know what? That restless night actually leads to a massive geographic breakthrough. By morning, he's a completely changed man, literally jumping up and down with excitement. He spotted a tall rock pinnacle positioned just opposite the plateau. They can climb it using their ropes. But getting to the top of the pinnacle still leaves them separated from the actual plateau by a terrifying 12-meter abyss. Crossing this gap requires a brilliant display of creative problem solving. Challenger doesn't just look out and see an impossible chasm, he sees a solution. He points out that a tree right next to them on the pinnacle is about 18 meters tall. If they use their hatchets to cut it down so it falls directly across the 12-meter gap, they will have instantly manufactured a bridge to the plateau. It's so simple, yet so brilliant. It really is a stroke of absolute genius. Lord Roxton and Malone chop the tree and it falls exactly as planned. Leaving Zamba behind on the pinnacle to guard the bulk of their provisions, the four men grab their rifles and some basic supplies. Carefully, inch by inch, they cross this makeshift wooden bridge over a staggering drop, finally setting foot into the dense forest of Maple White's lost world. It is a moment of total, exhilarating triumph. But you knew it couldn't be that easy, right? Almost immediately, catastrophe strikes. They're barely off the bridge when they hear a terrible, deafening noise right behind them. They spin around only to watch their massive tree bridge shatter and crash into the bottom of the abyss. Something, or someone, has intentionally destroyed their only way back. Our narrator, Malone, hits the nail on the head, perfectly capturing the absolute, heart-stopping horror of the situation with this realization. Their ultimate scientific triumph has instantly transformed into the ultimate trap. The very thing they fought so hard to reach is now their incredibly dangerous, prehistoric jail cell. Let's really break down the consequences of this epic cliffhanger to see the stark reality they're facing. They aren't just stuck. The situation is completely dire. That 18-meter bridge is gone. Zamba, along with their main food and survival supplies, is stranded totally out of reach on the pinnacle. They've lost zero-hour contact with civilization, and they are now permanently trapped on an isolated plateau alongside highly aggressive prehistoric predators. Which brings us to the end of today's explainer. And I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought, taken straight from the text's own critical thinking questions. Look at the sheer impossible situation they're in. They proved the skeptics wrong, they found the dinosaurs, but their bridge is gone. How on earth do you think Edward Malone, Professor Challenger, and the rest of the crew are going to survive this, let alone ever find a way back home to tell the tale? Think about it. And as always, keep exploring.